little bit late, but I wanted to come on and share a little bit with you about my Pesach, my Passover miscarriage. I think, I'm very wary of trying to, there's a fine balance between sharing too much and sharing too little. But I think that I think it's important to share things like this because lots of people go through things on Pesach, on Passover, on all Jewish holidays. And I believe that, having these holidays that are in combination with so many of the different pieces that are part of our fertility journey, it really just, it changes the nature of the holidays for us. It makes us think always back to the time where we were struggling with that one thing or we were dealing with something. And so I'm sharing this with you as a way of letting all of you know that you're not alone, number one, and also to tell you a little piece of my life that is not secret. There are many people who know about this, which you'll see in a second, but there are lots of things that people struggle with that we never know, and so this is one of them. I'm happy to answer any questions either now or later on as people watch, but so I'm here to share it with you. And so let me just get right down to it. This was Pesach of, let's call it, let me just think about this for a second. So my daughter was born, my third daughter was born in 2008, 2009. So this was Pesach 2010. We had already had, so again, my third daughter, let me say that again. My number 3, my daughter was born in 2008, and I had nursed her for a year, and then we, thank God, got pregnant very quickly, and then sometime in the spring, something like that, we got pregnant, and then I think it was around May or June, I basically went in for my 16-week ultrasound, and there was no heartbeat. That was the first of the second trimester losses that I had. Many of you know my story already. It's also, it's on our website, it's up on our podcast, but just as a summation, I had 4 second trimester miscarriages in a row. So that was the first one right after my daughter. And we were, to say that we were shocked and devastated is like a total understatement. It had been a healthy pregnancy. There was nothing that was wrong. I never had any indication there was anything happening. I wasn't cramping. I wasn't bleeding. I just walked in for that 16-week ultrasound and there was no heartbeat. We did a D&E, which is the procedure to take the baby out, because I wanted to make sure that we could get some material so that we could test the baby to see if the baby had any chromosomal abnormality. It did not. And my doctors just basically kind of chalked it up to a fluke. Like, it happens. Okay, it happens. Like, it's horrible. It's terrible. But he kept saying to me, Aimee, you have 3 children. You're young. Try again. Everything will be fine. There's no reason to think that anything will go wrong the next time you get pregnant. And, it took a while for my body to heal. It took a while for me emotionally to wrap my head around the fact that I wanted to get pregnant again. I was petrified. I was scared. One of the reasons why we have a pregnancy after loss group is because just even thinking about getting pregnant again, knowing that you've had a loss, and then being pregnant again, it's petrifying. It is a fear that unless you have been there, you do not understand. Of course, there's hope and there's joy because, there's another life and there's the potential that you're going to have another baby. But the excitement that one normally feels when you get pregnant is just, it's so like squashed down when you have a loss, because the anxiety is the thing that bubbles to the surface. You're just worried, like, is this going to be a good pregnancy? Am I going to be able to hold it? Is my body going to be able to tolerate another one? Is this baby going to be alive, or is this baby going to die too? It's petrifying. So it took me a while to even want to get pregnant again, but then we finally did. I got pregnant, and Pesach was getting closer. Passover was getting closer and closer and closer. And that 16-week mark was coming closer and closer and closer. And I was getting more and more and more nervous, but I kept in the back of my head, like my doctor was like, it's a fluke. It'll be a fluke. It was a fluke. Everything's going to be fine. It happened to be that my 16-week appointment was like on a Thursday. And sorry, I take that back. Whatever day it was, I don't remember what day it was. The 16-week appointment was whatever day, and then we were actually going away for Pesach that year to a hotel. And I remember that I had my 16-week appointment. Everything was good. I was like petrified walking into the appointment, but the heartbeat was there. It was strong. Everything was good. And I was like, oh, thank God, it's going to be a good pregnancy. And they did all the typical blood work, and they said, don't worry, go away, have a great vacation, like enjoy, we'll give you the results when you come back. Don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. I'm like, thank God, everything was good. I packed up, we left. The first 2 days of Pesach were great, amazing. I turned on my phone after the first 2 days of the holiday, after Yantif, and there was a message from my OB, and he said, Aimee, call me in the morning. And I was like, oh, if he's calling me, it means there's something wrong. I'm like, what could be wrong? What could be wrong? What could be wrong? I was completely and utterly flipping out. I called in the morning, and I got to him, and he said, the blood work that you took, the blood work is indicating that there's something wrong with the baby. We don't know if it's Down syndrome or if there's something else, but it's indicative that something's wrong with the baby. And I said, I don't understand. I said, we just had the ultrasound. Everything looked good. You checked. I had the nuchal at 12 weeks or 11 weeks, and the neck thickness was good. I had the blood work done at that point. I know I might be saying things now that are totally outdated, because I know there are different tests and different things that are utilized now to check the babies. But this is, again, we're talking about a number of years ago. And so I was like, I didn't understand why he was telling me that there was something wrong with the baby when I already had tests earlier on in the pregnancy that confirmed that everything was fine. And he said, look, I don't want you to worry about this now. I want you to continue with your vacation. I know you're away. I was in Florida. He said, I know you're away. I want you to continue. He said, when you get back to New York, when you get back home, you'll come and see me. We'll do an amniocentesis, or we'll do all the testing. And he said, just try to put it out of your mind. And I was like, I can't. I'm a doctor myself. Many of you know this. I said, you gave me bad news. I can't just put it out of my mind. Like, it totally ruins my vacation. It ruins my holiday. We need to find a doctor down here who can do all this testing now. I need to know what's going on with this baby, because I'm a wreck and I'm not going to be able to enjoy myself. And it ended up actually being extremely difficult. At the time, there was only like 1 or 2 doctors in South Florida that would do an amniocentesis, which is basically what I needed and what he suggested. They had seen my doctor had seen a problem with the baby, and he was recommending an amniocentesis, but he told me that I could wait until I got home and that I didn't have to do it while I was away. And I was like, too bad, I'm sorry. Like, I need to know it now. My vacation is already ruined. Let's find a doctor down here in Florida that can do an amniocentesis for me. So an amniocentesis, for those of you who don't know, is basically where they take a needle and they put the needle into your uterus and they get out some fluid from the amniotic sac, basically from where the baby is swimming, and they take that fluid out and they test that fluid. And that fluid, because like it has like cells that are shed from the baby, from the fetus, so they can tell from that fluid, they can tell whether, they can do genetic testing on that fluid, and they can see what the story is with the baby. And so we found this one doctor, I think it was like 45 minutes away, that would do an amniocentesis like on a short notice like that. My doctor called down, pulled strings. I tried to use my doctor connections, etc., to get it going. So now we're talking about, Chol HaMoed, let's say, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, something like, I don't even remember anymore, whatever day it was. So we had the appointment either the next day or the day after I got the news. And I remember the doctor was a very kind woman. She sat us down in her office first and we explained the whole story, and she had gotten all the records from my doctor. And she said, listen, I understand why you want to do this now. It's not 100% sure. There might be something wrong with the baby. Here's the situation. Here's what happens. Here's the percentage of what this when this kind of diagnosis, we get this kind of diagnosis. Here's what happens when we get this kind of diagnosis, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, okay, whatever it is, it is. I just need to know. I can't go on with this uncertainty. I just need to know. She brings us into the other room where the ultrasound is, and I lay down on the table, and she puts the jelly on, and she takes the probe, and she puts the probe on my stomach, and immediately I knew the baby had died. And it was like, here I am again. I was over 16 weeks at that point. Mind you, a few days earlier, I had been back in my doctor's office. My baby was alive. Everything looked good. And he only called me because the blood test had shown that there was a problem. In hindsight, I'm going to go forwards and backwards, but basically in hindsight, what we all figured out was that the baby was already dying, and because it was dying, it was emitting certain kinds of chemicals, protein, whatever you want to say, that it was picked up in the blood that they had done from me. I'm like pointing to my arm where they took the blood. And it was the proteins, the chemicals, whatever it was that blood test picked up, that they thought might be a problem with the baby, that there might be Down syndrome or some other issue, was really just the baby being in distress. Because what actually ended up happening was that baby was also perfect genetically. There was nothing wrong with that baby. And that's the presumption as to why that blood test came back poorly. What's the rest of the story? And why am I telling you this? Because there are pieces of it that are just, it's almost unfathomable, but I know so many of you go through pieces of this, and that's why I'm sharing it. Again, my doctor said to me, he said, you don't have to get this baby out right away. You can wait for your body to take care of it. Or when you come back home, we'll have the procedure. He said, I'll schedule you right now, and we'll have the procedure, and we'll take the baby out. And I said, I am not walking around another day with this baby in my body. I can't do it. And it was exactly what I said the first time. It's just personally the way I feel. Anytime I had always found out about these losses, I just wanted the babies out. I just wanted, I couldn't, it was too much. It was just too much for me to handle. And so again, I said, we're doing this now. We're doing this before I go home. I can't do this. I was in a hotel. I was in a big hotel program. There were probably, 11 or 1,200 people in this program. I was like, I can't just walk around the program and take my kids to the pool and show up at meals and be like, and people are like, oh, when are you, I just couldn't couldn't anymore. So there was one doctor, in South Florida where we were, that could do a procedure to take the baby out. We met with him. He said he does it in his office, in the clinic. He doesn't do it in the hospital like I had the first one done. I had no concept of what was going on. I was like so out of it. I just knew I wanted the baby out. And my husband kept saying to me, he was like, are you sure? You know, we can wait till we go home. You can have it done in the hospital. This thing, it's like sketchy. I don't know. It makes me nervous. I said, I need this baby out. We went, I think it was Friday at that point. I think it was Yontif. I think it was already the holiday. I'm like, the details are so sketchy. My husband will remember. We had to ask a lot of questions, a lot of shilas about, could we have it done? Should we have it done? Like how we were allowed to get to the clinic and get back to the clinic, get back from the clinic, back to the hotel. These are all issues of Jewish law because you can't use electricity on these days of the holiday, and, you know, driving in a car, signing paper, like all of these things. We had done as much as we could in advance, and then basically showed up there. We paid a cab to stay and wait. This was before the days of Uber, whatever. These details are fuzzy. The pieces that I still remember to this day starkly is waking up from anesthesia, from the procedure. And instead of being like in a private room or in a private area, sometimes like when I've had the procedure done unfortunately 4 times, and when I've had it done in the hospital, you're in the recovery room and they have the curtains around you, so you have privacy even though you're in a room with lots of other people and everybody has privacy. I remember waking up and I was in a bed, and there were no curtains for privacy, and right next to me was a young girl. I don't know how old she was. She was a teenager. She was of another race, and her mother, her friend, someone was there sitting next to her, and I heard her crying, saying, my baby, my baby. And at that moment, when I was in this haze of coming out of anesthesia, I realized that I had woken up and I was in an abortion clinic. And the woman next to me, the girl next to me, had taken her very healthy, presumably, again, I know nothing about her life, I knew nothing about her medical story, but had taken her baby that was very much alive and taken that baby out. And for me, I very much wanted my baby to be alive, and it wasn't. And that baby was also taken out. I've heard so many stories from all of you about people who've also had these kinds of procedures done in abortion clinics. And it is something that I wouldn't wish on any of you. It is just, it's one of these cruel pieces that I don't think even to this day that I really understand. I finally was able to go home, go back, leave the clinic, go home. We went back to the hotel. I did not leave my room for the rest of the holiday. We had flown my babysitter down to help take care of my children because I was not able to. And I had some very good friends who were also at that program. And I had my husband specifically go up to them and tell them what had happened because I wanted them to know, not from me, and I wanted them to be able to share the news with others because I didn't want to have to do it myself. And I knew that, at that point I was already 16 weeks pregnant. Everybody knew I was pregnant. And we had to tell people that we weren't, and I didn't want the obligation of doing that. And that's my story. I had 2 more second trimester losses, one less than a year later, and another one, I think it was a year plus after that. All of those babies were healthy, all of them. They were genetically perfect. There were 2 boys and 2 girls. But I wanted to share with you this because Pesach is a hard holiday. It's a hard holiday for so many different reasons. For people who are dealing with infertility, who come into this holiday that is so focused on children and just don't know how they're going to make it through. And for those of you out there who thought that you were going to be sitting at the Pesach Seder, you were going to be sitting there with your family and have a family of your own at this point. So many of you have scars of losses that you've had during this year. You've had terminations. So many of you have terminated pregnancies because they were not healthy. You've had ectopics, you've had molar pregnancies, you've had stillbirths. So many of you thought that this year would be different. And I'm here to tell you that no matter what you're carrying into this Pesach, into this Passover, I too have this scar, have this hole in my heart because of what I experienced on Pesach. And I will never go into another Pesach Seder without thinking of it, of thinking of the bliss that I thought my life was going to be and how everything I thought was going to be great. And then getting that first phone call, that first turning on of my phone after Yantif and having that message from my doctor. So to all of you out there, I'm here. We are here as an organization for all of you, no matter where you are, no matter what you are holding or you are not holding. We are here and we get it. And I'm sending you all lots and lots and lots of love. Feel free to ask any questions at any time. I'm happy to share all of it, any of it. You can send me private messages or you can email also. But we're here and I'm here. Mo'adim l'simcha, everybody.